Rachel, our first question is, how do we clearly demonstrate our presence in virtual online communication?
Starting off with a great question. It can sound a little overdone or over communicated, but when we think about the way we show up on video, the first thing we have to ensure is set up correctly is our framing, our lighting, and our backgrounds. If you think about the way your audience will be digesting the way you show up, they're looking just through that tiny little lens, right? And so you can show up physically with a pretty amazing presence and you can be using all of the right words depending on your context. But if your setup is not done correctly, all of that goes out the window when you're on video, right? So you really want to make sure that you're showing up in such a way that your audience can see you clearly so that they have someone very concrete they can focus on. Your audience is most likely going to have a pretty distracted experience on video. They might have multiple tabs open. They may be multitasking or whatever. We want to minimize the amount of noise that we project to our audience so that they can most effectively engage with us and with our behaviors, with our presence, et cetera. I have to say that is the first thing, always when we're discussing video as that channel of communication. And then there's the whole other bag of tricks around, the way that you leverage your nonverbal communication from a body language perspective, right? The way that you leverage gestures when you're the active speaker, the way you look into the lens, like these are all elements that give us a little more presence, gravitas, whatever it is that you want to, however you want to relate to that term. In those moments of connection. So there's definitely a lot to play with. If you nail your setup, then we get to talk about some of the more nuanced aspects of behavior that can all contribute to that feeling of presence.
Yeah, and I think people are concerned that when it comes to virtual interactions, they lose their ability to have a presence because it isn't in person. And it's actually quite the opposite. You have much more control over your presence because you decide your setup, you decide exactly what they see, and it's going to be stagnant. They're not going to see movement behind you, preferably. So you can have a lot of control over this one area, whereas in in-person interactions, you don't have that ability.
Yeah, definitely. At Virtual Sapiens, we like to call it your playground, right? Like you get to define what shows up in that background in a way that's very unique to video. You can decide what people see also, because it's really just from the like low, high chest kind of up, which is a benefit, right? So there's definitely a lot you can play with. The other, just finally, another point that I find very interesting is on video, some of the most expressive parts of our body are showcased, right? So whether it's our faces, our facial expressions, our body postures, the way we orient with our upper bodies, and then hand gestures, of course, if you're framed such that your hand gestures actually show, there's so much body language that you can leverage on video. It's definitely not, if you're showing up like this, then we're not getting very much, right? But again, if you framed yourself properly, there's a lot to play with.